held here at City Hall Council Chambers. Attending tonight, myself, we have Alder Wheeler, Michael Gurnetsky, and Dave Wilborn. So we have 4 of our 5 members here. I don't believe we have anyone for non-agenda items. I see someone right. Strike, and it couples to those and comes back in and damages things. Similar thing happens on high pressure pipelines. So, but I would ask the grounding question. You know, they can
appreciate that. Thanks.
They have a clamp that they can put on the ground rod and see if it's a good low resistance contact. Sometimes it makes a difference, sometimes it doesn't. You know, my experience, we thought we had grounds, and ground rod was just driven into sand. We didn't do anything. So
yeah, we had a couple issues on that same night within a couple of minutes of each other, where the pumps at another place kicked on. We couldn't get them to turn off, so we had to go and reset those as well. So it was something that just, was regional and in nature.
Yep. On our put a note on your list that maybe part of our maintenance practice on our service entrances, there's typically some arresters there. Might be some medium or low voltage arresters that maybe we want to consider testing those too. If those are failed, they won't stop they won't absorb the surge. So I doubt it would have made any difference, but I'll just mention it to you. All right, any other questions, board members, for Bill? I had one more thing, then I'll shut up here. On the sidewalks, do the residents have the option to repair those themselves? Say it's offset, could they bring a mud jacker in there and straighten it out, or could they grind off the difference? Is that, would that option? I think it would cost them more, but.
I think it would too, but we would allow that as long as they prepare it per city specifications, and we do not reimburse the homeowner for 50% of that cost.
Okay.
Whereas if they were to go on the city program, we would reimburse.
So there's no reason for them to, okay.
Right.
All right, very good, thank you. All right, next we're going to go to the agenda items. I would like, if Alder Wheeler, yes. So you're which agenda item are you? 4. Yeah. Okay. We're going to move. We're going to move up number H, and then we can move up 4. Is that?
We're on number 4.
We're on 4. Okay. Are you on 4A? 4A, Patrick?
4 is just the report.
4 report of department. Oh. You're here to speak on agenda item 4?
Yep.
Chair. Well, that would have been other such matters. Come on up. All right.
I think he wants an update to his question.
Yeah, come on up. This is related to the Greenfield water, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Kenny, 11 Kitty Crest, here in person. Is it not on?
I don't believe it is.
Okay, there we go. Patrick Cheney, 5211 Kitty Crest, here in person to see if there might be some answers available yet, and maybe even a discussion about the questions that I provided to you at your last meeting regarding the Greenfield water main loop and the South Saline water main.
Bill, do we have any, I know you were working on a response.
Yep, I've got most of a response done. I should be able to send it out tomorrow. It just has been kind of time consuming with the other things we've been doing, so I will get it out, promise.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate your diligence. I'll follow up. All right. Next on to 5 agenda items. I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda to move resolution R-15822, authorizing Fitchburg Greenway System Pilot Project to the front of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I so move we approve resolution R-112. Move it to the start of the agenda.
Agenda.
158-22.
Okay, so Wilborn moved that we amend the agenda to move resolution R-15822 to the top. Is there a second?
Are we going to have time?
Second by Wheeler.
Are we going to have time to get through this before the public hearing at 6?
I believe so. Yeah, this was scheduled after the public, this was scheduled before the public hearing anyway.
Oh, okay.
All right, so now we've amended it. So now do we have a motion to approve resolution R-15822 authorizing Fitchburg Greenway System Pilot Project?
I move approval.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second? Second by Wilborn. Bill, do you want to give us a brief on this, and then I'll have Mr. Arnold speak here?
I was hoping Mr. Arnold would be able to speak to this. He
All
has
right.
a little bit more expertise than I do on this
And Mr.
topic.
Arnold, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I am always appreciative of the expertise that the board members bring to the matters of the city, like lightning strikes on wells. So thank you for that.
Hey, Steve, can we get your name and address?
Sure. I'm Steve Arnold. I live at 2530 Targhee Street, and I am representing Bike Fitchburg at the meeting tonight. I hate to go over the material that's in the packet if members have all reviewed it. Does anybody need me to go back over that? So I'm here basically to answer questions. And so is Scott Endel. This is a Parks Commission resolution, our Parks Department resolution. The one thing that I would add is that this I'm calling the mini resolution to just approve this pilot project to accept the signs and brackets and posts that Bike Fitchburg will purchase with the $1,000 grant that we got from Wisconsin's AARP for the Fitchburg Greenway project. This is in the spirit of a pilot project. But I wanted to alert you, to the members, that Bike Fitchburg has already presented the Fitchburg Greenway System proposal to the Bicycle Committee, the Parks Commission, the mayor, and several alders, and we will be taking that to the Tree Advisory Committee at their request in September. And I just wanted to let you know that if it's the pleasure of the committee, we'd be happy to present about a 20-slide deck to orient you to the full Fitchburg Greenway proposal that we'll be trying to advance through the council and the Park Commission. And other than that, I would entertain any questions you might have on the 3 pages that are part of this submission.
First, I would ask, maybe next meeting, you could present those slides?
Is that 2 weeks or 4 weeks?
That's 2 weeks. I believe, Bill, are we on for the 15th?
We're 2 weeks, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Be happy to do that. If you would put me on the agenda, I will make that date.
Well, it's somewhat fresh in my mind.
Very good. Anything else?
Mr. Endel, you have any thoughts, or,
Maybe just as Steve alluded, the Park Commission did actually, Steve presented the whole program, if you would, to the Park Commission, and they were very receptive to the idea. We have included it, I know with Wade leaving the office, and the park master plan update, it was also included as an item in the Park and Open Space Plan update. So it's really kind of lining up, but certainly, as Steve indicated, this is kind of a first look at it, the pilot program, to see how it works. But everyone's been very, very supportive to this point.
Mr. Chair?
Yep. Yes, Steve.
Yeah. Let me add that a little bit of the history is that this was presented last spring of '21, and to the various committees and to the mayor, and it was the mayor's desire that we included in the park and open space plan update before it went any farther, and so that's how it got kind of stalled for a year. In the meantime, we've been making grant applications, and we've applied to two $10,000 grants to do the initial segment on Fish Hatchery Road. One is pending, but one was unsuccessful. But we were successful with this $1,000 grant from ARP Wisconsin, and we pitched that as a pilot project to just put the signage up at two intersections so that elected officials and the public could see what it would look like if it was extended over the whole city. So this is signage to show directions and distances to destinations. Not unlike the wayfinding signage that the city recently implemented throughout the city, the light green and white signs that economic development was the main sponsor of for motorists. So this would be on our path system to help people understand that, for example, from the Leopold network, it's only about 1.5 miles to the senior center. And a lot of people in the Leopold neighborhood don't know that we have a city hall and a library and a senior center. And they may not have a personal vehicle, but it's an easy walk or bike ride down a safe side path to those important city civic destinations, which their taxes, perhaps included in their rent, are paying for, but they may not be taking advantage of.
I'm in favor of the pilot. I won't be advocating for the city spending tens of thousands of dollars for more signage than we have. I feel like I'm on these trails as much as anyone. I can probably tell you within 1/10 of a mile how far it is from one point to another, and I think we have some good maps. I've had many people come to me and say, well, we're overwhelmed at all these green signs everywhere, to be honest with you. But we'll go through with the pilot, and we'll see how it looks. But
with all due respect, Mr. Chair, the wayfinding signage is not aimed for the people who are familiar with the system. So many people in Fitchburg know that there's a bike path near their home, but they have no idea that we have 36 miles of them that go to so many important civic and commercial destinations.
Well, here we probably have a point of disagreement. We'll agree to disagree. I don't know if they've been living under a rock, but it's not hard to find a map or look up our trails. But we'll agree to disagree, Steve. How's that?
I would also just kind of echo your comments. I think that personally, after looking at the budget for park signage and the recent signage that got put all across the city, I've heard nothing but, I don't want to say complaints, but just kind of eyeball rolls as to why we have landmarks for motorists when clearly you're driving to places and you're going to kind of know where those things are. And if you don't know where those things are, you're driving past it, it's probably not of value to you. One of the fears I would have with this, again, just to kind of echo that same thought, is if we do a pilot project in one part of the city, we're going to be expanding this really, really fast. Ultimately, that's probably the goal. Steve, I would hope you'd comment on that, is to get more signage throughout the city if this pilot is deemed successful.
Yes. Again, I'll tell an anecdote. My wife and her friend were canvassing for a fall election to promote early voting in the Leopold neighborhood. And they were talking to one of the residents at their door and said, you can vote anytime at City Hall. Anytime they're open now, early voting has started. And the resident said, well, that doesn't make any sense. If I live in Fitchburg, why should I need to go down to Martin Luther King Boulevard to cast my early ballot? And my wife had to explain, Fitchburg has its own City Hall. And so many of the residents in our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative areas have never been south of McKee Road and don't know what the city has to offer and how easily it is to get down here. So again, this is not targeted at the members of the Public Works Board, but again, our residents who are not aware of what we have to offer up and down the corridor.
Right, and I would say that that's more a function of their city alder and the community outreach that they do. And well, again, I love the fact that we find different opportunities to provide services for the city. Signage just seems like it's maybe the wrong way of doing it in today's world. The second thing I would just kind of say too is, as we go along with this, the expansion of this would be something that I guess maybe I agree and disagree with Dave on this one. Getting a pilot program infers that we would have that next step, which would commit city resources. So if we're doing this and we're kind of making the recommendation to move forward with the pilot program, you're by de facto saying this is something that we would look at investing in the future.
Dave?
Yes, John.
I guess I'm going to take an opposite view of we don't need signs. As I'm on a bike path or anywhere, like even going to McFarland, I think those signs are very helpful. I think it's a safety issue. I think people need to know where they are. And I think we can't take the view that, well, we know where everything is, so we don't need signs. I mean, these signs are just for anybody who's coming into the city. Now, I don't like, it'd be great if they could get the money by raising funds, because I'm another one who really don't like spending a lot of money. But when they say we don't need the signs, I totally disagree. I like the way the green signs that are up around the city. I mean, it's nice to be driving down the street and somebody could go, oh, there's Quarry Ridge bike path, or the what is it? The
Mountain bike, yeah.
Path. I mean, you don't know it's there, because there's really no sign there. But when you see that, the sign that says points right to it, I think that's important, especially for people. I've talked to people coming from Baraboo and everywhere else. So I just got to disagree and say that signs, I think, are important. And just because we know where they are, where different places are, that doesn't mean we shouldn't, have signs up.
I hear your comment. My counter to that, Jim, would be, you have technology and, phones and internet and things like that. I would prefer to, or, have maps that people can, at our kiosks and things like that. All right, any other discussion? Let's call the vote. All in favor, I've lost track here, I'm sorry. All in favor of Resolution R 15822, authorizing Fitchburg Greenway System pilot project, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Nay. It doesn't. We are at 2 and 2, and so it does not pass here. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Next, Resolution R 15522, a resolution approving Fourth Amendment to the agreement for subdivision improvements in the plat of Terra Vesa. Before we move for approval, do we have to approve this, and then we'll do the amendment, I believe, Bill? Okay. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, by Gronetsky, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. Okay. Bill would like an amendment here, and I'll let him describe the amendment
Sure.
first, and the wording.
Essentially what the agreement does is we had some improvements that needed to be required within 4 years for the Terra Vesa first edition, or just the Terra Vesa initial subdivision that was started back in 2017. We're coming up on the 4-year deadline on that project of when they started the construction, that they have to complete all the sidewalks. And in the areas of T5, which are the dense areas of high density residential and business, we have a terrace sidewalk, and we also have the sidewalk itself. So it's 11 feet wide. And what we've done is we've installed a sidewalk throughout all these subdivisions, but we haven't installed the terrace part yet, which includes the tree grates and Yeah, the tree grates and the trees that would go within that terrace area too. So we're paving those areas in the T5 area. The agreement, the amendment to the agreement would extend this for another 4 years to allow businesses to construct as they come online, so that we're not tearing things, putting it in and tearing it back up again. So if you've got your business out there, you're building right now, you're covered. You'll put that in when you do your development. There's areas that have outlots on some areas, and we've got some that are pending to be constructed on, and some that are being proposed in the future. So what we're asking for is an amendment to the agreement that in section 2.01E, where we would strike out just outlot in that first sentence, and then insert all outlots except outlot 17 in that section. So essentially what we're doing is saying we're requiring all the sidewalks to go in the outlots except where you're being developed, and then those developers would be putting the sidewalk in at the time of construction. 17 is one, or I'm sorry, outlot 57 is the one that is going to be constructed on. I made a mistake on that. It's outlot 57. 57 is one that is going to be constructed on in the near future, and we would have to amend the agreement again in a couple of weeks. So I'm just taking care of this in advance of that.
So we are asking for amendment to, we are asking, move forward an amendment to alter section 2.01E, crossing out outlot and replacing it with all outlots except 57. And I'll just mention this is for the, do we have to indicate this 4-year extension on here, or don't we need that?
We don't need to that's in the original agreement.
So would someone make a motion to move that amendment forward as stated?
Can I just make sure that the reason for the outlot 57 getting excluded from this is in that amendment, just because we don't want to make it look, somebody goes back 2-3 years later and be like, well, why did they get an exception? Mm-hmm. If we can just make sure that the reasoning is in it, because
it's pending development.
Pending development.
Yep.
That would be, I would make that motion.
Okay. We have a motion to amend. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Wilburn. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor of this amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Back to the initial resolution. Any other questions on this? This is the fourth amendment to Terra Vesa. All right, then we'll call the vote on the amended resolution R-15522. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution R-15422, accepting a public sanitary sewer easement in outlot 6 in Terra Vesa. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Granetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. So what's significant about outlot 6? Why?
Well, when we went through the original plat and the design of the sanitary sewer, we rerouted some sewer kind of last minute and got some easements along the back property lines, along the property along MM south of Lacey Road. We missed the section that goes through outlot 6, which goes, it's the connection between the private lots and Lacey Road. It's a private outlot, hasn't been developed yet, and we're looking to get that easement recorded on there so that anybody purchasing that lot would know that.
That outlot is planned for development.
I believe so.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. I think, no, it's the pond. It's a city-owned pond.
Okay.
My confusion, I'm sorry about that.
We're just establishing an easement there.
Correct. There's no cost to the city for the easement.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation. Any other questions? Go ahead, Michael.
On this one, Bill, and I think I've asked this question before and I just don't recall the answer. For developments like Terra Vesa, where we've got outlots for storm ponds, contrasting that with Quarry Vista, where the homeowners association owns the outlots and are responsible for the maintenance of it, not the taxpayers. Where was that line drawn? Do you remember where that line was drawn to say this neighborhood has this neighborhood doesn't have that?
Those were both subdivisions that occurred before I came, so their approvals were already pretty much done.
Okay.
But my recollection of it is that the Quarry Vista one did not meet our design standards.
Okay.
So it was elected to be maintained as private.
Okay. Just tangent to this one, I would say that as we start looking at these new developments, the Quarry Vista model, even though it does, maybe it doesn't meet it, maybe this one does, having the city look at those things like these outlots where there's retention areas and having the homeowners association as a policy or having the homeowners take ownership of these outlots so that the city isn't responsible for the maintenance around these. Same thing would go with any sort of barrier fencing that would go along the lines, making sure that whether it's in, a neighborhood like Quarry Vista, which also has a fence, or any of the Seminoles, which have fences along there, that the city isn't responsible for the maintenance of those fences, of these outlots, anything that really is of the benefit of just really that neighborhood. That would be something I'd love to get more feedback on over the next, kind of couple months, and as we move forward to figure out what the policy should be moving forward for the city.
That's a good point. All right, any other questions on this one? I'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R-15422, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is, we're at 6 o'clock, so let's, I'd like to have a motion to, do we have to amend the agenda or defer, I guess at this time we'll go into just a couple-minute recess, and we will pick up with the public hearing, and then we will come back to the agenda items. Okay. Just give public a couple minutes here to see anyone else coming in. Okay, we'll come back into session here, Fitchburg Board of Public Works, and opening the public hearing on the Northeast Water Main final assessments. Note for the record here, I'll read as soon as I page up here. Can you display that? Can you display anything up there, Bill? Or is it too late here?
Are you looking for the assessment list?
That's what you want to see, is the assessment list up there, Dave? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Purpose of, I'll just read here. The purpose of this public hearing will be to discuss final assessments associated with the water main installed along West Clayton Road in County MM. Special assessment process is required to be reopened for all affected properties when final assessment amounts for any of the affected properties are greater than 10% of the preliminary special assessment roll. The final assessment amount for parcel ends in 9950-8 is more than 10% of the preliminary assessment roll due to a change in land use. A public hearing is required due to this change. So that's why we're here. Bill, can you explain the land use that drove this?
Up on County Trunk of MM, there was a parcel that was owned as a single-family home, and that was purchased by the school district for an outreach education purposes from the Oregon School District. And so that became from a residential use to a commercial use or a non-residential use. And so that those are assessed differently than residential uses are. And so that increased the cost of that parcel significantly because it's a per foot cost now instead of a plant value cost. And that was the drive of the change. Overall, the assessments did decrease, or the project cost estimate decreased from 1.5 million to 1.3 million. So we did see some savings in that area, but when we converted that residential parcel to the commercial parcel or the non-residential, it did increase the residential plant values a little bit. So it went from $65 per foot or for the plant value to $68.40. So it did increase their assessment about $300 for a typical residential home that was on the assessment area. And then the commercial, from the preliminary to final, went from $111 per lineal foot down to $101 per lineal foot. And that was simply because we've got more frontage on the commercial site to divide up those costs to. So I will share my screen with the assessment roll. If I can find it.
Bill, I missed something in here.
Sure.
So the property, where it was residential is purchased by the school. That's the assessment per foot changed for that. So that property paid more than it would have had it been a single-family residence.
That's correct.
So then I'm missing how that raised the assessment for the other residentials. I'm missing the math in there somewhere.
Okay. So I guess if I could just, basically what happens is you take the total frontage that you have for assessment and you divide it up between residential and commercial. So say you had, 100 feet and you have 70 of it that's in residential and 30 of it in commercial.
Okay.
So if you now switch that to say now it's like there's more feet of commercial in that 100 feet, they're going to take up the majority of it. So the 30 feet has to divide that same cost by 30 instead of 70. You're going to get a per foot larger in that area. Sorry, I'm not explaining it very well, but you're just reallocating the cost from the commercial. You're taking away some of the frontage from the residential, and you're allocating it toward the commercial.
But the total project, say, whatever it costs to put it in.
Right.
$100 to put it in.
Yep.
But now and say that property, say there were 10 owners and they were all equal. Mm-hmm. Except now that's commercial. And so theirs, instead of $10, it becomes $12 because they're paying per foot.
Correct.
Shouldn't the other ones be, 12, there's only, I would have thought theirs would have gone down a little bit.
Right. So now you've only got 80 feet going into or 8 parcels going into the 100.
Okay.
So you divide, instead of by 10, you're dividing by 8, so their costs go up.
Everyone on board with this, I've noticed.
I'm following.
You're following, okay, all right.
The question I would have is, was this a timing thing? Was this known? Could this have been communicated ahead of time?
No, it was just, they purchased the land in between the time that we did the preliminary assessment and the final. So that's our opportunity to, if there's any changes in there, to reflect the most accurate information we have available. So when we do the final, we look at all of those parcels again, see if anything changed from the beginning to the end, and that's when we do the final.
Okay.
We have some residents, it looked like you filled out the thing to speak. Would you like to come forward? Okay, all right. So we see up there the assessments are shown, or they were shown.
I'm trying to find them again.
And Bill, while you're doing this, can you also just kind of quickly recap what the timeline was on this, when first notice went out, when final notice went out, all that good stuff?
Oh, yeah, I just had that here. Let me get the original one. The preliminary assessment was sent out in 2020. Don't know the exact date on that. It was in the summer of 2020, I remember. Let's see if I got a date on this, when it was signed. Back in April, actually, we had the preliminary that was sent out, and then we had a hearing, I think it was in May. And then we approved the construction contract for that as well.
Okay. And that was in 2020?
2020,
Okay.
yeah.
And is that, I don't want to say, is that delay normal? Was this a normal project, or were there some circumstances that would have taken a little bit longer between kind of the preliminary and the final?
Yeah, it was kind of a staffing issue that we had, that we weren't able to get to it and devote some, time to finalize out. But it just, it was a 2-year construction. It was done over 20 and 21, and then we had to final things out. We didn't close the contract until earlier this year with the contractor, because they still had some punch list items to complete. So that was one of the things that, just to have all the final costs completed and closed out.
Bill, we had problems with the road base. We were doing that. Did that affect the water main?
No, that was paid through the resurfacing project and did not affect the water main.
Okay. All right. Note that, the assessment, if it's less than $500, we would request to be paid in one installment. 500 to 1,000 be paid in 3 yearly installments. 1,000 to 499 paid in 5 annual installments, and if greater than 5,000, out to 7 years is the schedule.
Correct.
Is that still? I believe that's still current here.
That is still current, and we're also asking for a 2-year deferral on this as well, to allow residents, the additional time to be able to put their finances together, because this happened right on the onset of COVID, and a lot of people were losing their jobs. So the city offered this as a financial relief for the residents.
Okay.
And just because this is, I wouldn't say the first time this has happened, but just for this area, was there any, for the 2-year deferral, there was no interest costs on that?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Board have any questions on this? Understood, why it changed here, the one property. Okay. All right. I will close this the public hearing now. Neither of you have any comments or questions? Come on up, please. Not trying to put you on the spot.
Oh, yes, we are. We're trying to put everybody on the spot.
I guess it just is, was he talking about, I came in a little bit late, about how we were going to pay for this? Is it going to be on our taxes for, like the sewer was just this last time?
This will be on your, this will be on your tax roll, and then you'll have options. You can You can choose to pay the whole thing at once if you want, but depending on how much it is, there's a schedule based on the number of years.
And that's what you just said about the 7 years, so.
That's what I was reading.
so-
It's 2 years
okay.
deferred on that. So if you were above 5,000, you'd have 9 years. First two, your first two, we're not collecting anything.
Okay, all right. So that, yeah, that's, like I said, I just got the letter and I came straight from work and I forgot my phone, I forgot the letter.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Then we're going to close the public hearing on the Northeast Water Main final assessments, and we'll return to our agenda items here. Next is Resolution R 15522, Fitchburg TMDL. That's where we are.
152. not
150, I'm sorry, 15222 Fitchburg TMDL WIN SLAMN update. Do you have a motion to approve?
I have so approved resolution number R-152-22.
We have a second.
Second.
Second by Granetsky. What's this about, Bill?
It's a bunch of letters.
I know that. That's why I would be butchering it here, so
Yes.
throwing it back to you. Oh, thank you.
I guess big picture, we've got a bunch of sediment and pollution that comes off in the form of runoff into our streams and rivers, and it ends up in the Rock River. And there was a study that was done by the EPA, the DNR, that said, this is really polluted, and you guys got to clean this up. So everything that drains into the Rock River has an allocation of pollution by community and drainage basins. So Fitchburg has so much that they're allowed to put in here to meet or improve the stream conditions. And when we completed we've been putting in ponds for years and things like that, and private development has been doing the same. But we've only been able to take credit for the actual municipal ponds. They said, the private ponds, those you can't take credit for because you have to do it anyway. It's a state requirement. But they did change that regulation with the TMDL that we are allowed to take credit for those. And as long as you can provide the documentation and maintenance agreements for those facilities, that they're being maintained as a valid facility. So what this TMDL study does is it takes all of Fitchburg and all the improvements of all the developments that have happened over the years and puts it into a model and says, okay, well, this is how much you're polluting the stormwater going into our Swan Creek, Lake Wabeesa, the Rock River, et cetera. And it compares it to what we're allowed to put in. And we have a strong indication that we are going to be able to meet the requirements of that based upon all the improvements that have been made over the years. And that's what this study essentially does. Currently, when the regulations changed back in 2014, I think it was, maybe it was 12, somewhere in that range. We were at a deficit that we weren't able to meet the requirements for the TMDL, and we were able to purchase essentially land credit from Madison Metro Sewage or Yahara Winds to make up for the credit in other areas in the county. So that drain into that watershed. So to the tune of about $105,000 a year, we've been paying for these credits, and the credits, what they do is they use those toward areas that have very good pollution removal, like in the farming community, putting in vegetative buffers, buying up tracts of land so that they can put these buffers in, working with the farming community on best practices for manure runoff and things like that. So those investments have been paying off out in the community. But we feel that we can, with this study, that we can reduce those costs or maybe possibly eliminate them altogether based upon the improvements that are made by the city and the development since we've been, a stormwater advocate. So that's what the study is about. We did, as far as the proposal goes, we put it out for bid last year. Due to staffing, we just haven't had the chance to evaluate them and make the recommendation. Now that we have the staff, things are starting to move, and you're going to see these proposals. We had 3 proposals that were submitted. AECom was deemed the best that was for based upon the proposal they submitted and meeting the requirements that we had put out there. And they had the best understanding of the project, so we elected to negotiate a contract with them for that. We also have a grant that we had submitted to the DNR last year to support the funding of this project. So the DNR is funding about $85,000 of this project. So of the total $185,000, the DNR is picking up $85,000. The city is kicking in $100,000, and I believe we had $110,000 in the budget, so we're a little under budget with that grant.
Questions for Bill?
There's a lot back there.
Yeah.
That was an excellent, very informative explanation. Thank you. You did a great job on that.
The city has been paying money, if I'm summarizing, the city has been paying money because we may or may not be polluting the Rock River, and we pay for some mitigation of that. And this is an analysis to understand the actual amounts that we're putting into the Rock River, and we feel that this will reduce the overall cost of our mitigation efforts.
Great summary. Yeah. Yeah, we back in 2014, we had a model that was created, but it only looked at city facilities. It didn't look at the private development. So now that we can add it in the private development into that, we feel that it will really reduce the costs.
Bill mentioned the $105,000 a year, for those credits, which was quite economical as opposed to what the EPA would have liked to have done, and that was having Mass and Met implement phosphorus removal, which would have cost us, 10 times as much, or maybe 100 times as much. So it was a good deal. Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry I cut you off.
I guess one of the things, the only thing that I would say on top of this would be, I would love to know specifically from the vendor, like how they were able to determine what's Fitchburg's versus what somebody else's is. Mm-hmm. Obviously, rivers flow. And so if there's the analysis of what Fitchburg is dumping in, I shouldn't say dumping in, what contaminants are coming directly from Fitchburg proper, as opposed to maybe a surrounding community. Even if there is a surrounding community on the other side, like how is that determined? I would love to make sure that we get an update on how they came up with that.
Sure. When we have the presentation, we'll make sure that they have that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So, Bill, a question for you. Do we have the Swan Creek monitoring, or not Swan Creek, but Murphy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Swan Creek. Monitoring,
and that's, this area over here. Where I live, Jamestown, it's going into Sugar River watershed.
Mm-hmm.
Is there I don't believe we have a monitoring on the Goose Lake discharge going down there, going that direction. Is there plans to do that, or, it seems like we're relying on the kind of snapshot of the Swan Creek monitoring station to know the impact of the whole city. Am I missing something there?
No, I think what I'd just add to that would be that the Swan Creek is just kind of a calibration to what the model is actually doing. So we can take a look at these storms as they occur and then compare that to what's happening on Swan Creek. So we'll have a model. It should dump out this much, and it's just kind of a check right now.
Okay. How much time is it? Do you have an estimate how much time it's going to take to survey the private private facilities to see that they're being maintained and, the paperwork and documentation for that, I'm hoping that's not, a huge, hoping we're not spending more on that than, the 105,000.
Yeah, no, we've been working on that. We knew it was coming most of last year, so we've been assembling all the documents that are needed for the modeling. And it comes back to the maintenance agreements that are recorded on all of these private properties, and they're required to submit an annual report indicating that they still meet those requirements that they built it. And if they're not, then they have to bring that into compliance. So these certifications have to be done by a professional engineer, so they're not going to just, submit something. We make sure that it's correct and they're in compliance with what they're supposed to be doing.
Excellent. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 15222, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll just add, I think this is a very, very worthwhile, good step in the right direction here. Next, we have Resolution R 15122, renew Green Tier Clearwater Initiative Charter membership. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second? We have a second on this one. Okay, second by Wilburn. So I'll let you run through this one again too. I would butcher it a little more.
All right. Many years ago, I'm not sure the exact date and time, but I think it was 2006, a group of interested community members, municipalities, enforcement, building contractors got together and said, we would really like to make sure we're doing the best practices that we can out there in the community. And this group got together and came up with a charter that put together those best practices and said, we got to be looking out for each other. We got to do things that work and there's things that don't work. So they're continuously evaluating, new practices and in the contracting world, municipal world, as to what works and doesn't work. So there's a very long list of things that we kind of signed on to do, and we do them. And as a member of the group, the Green Tier group, we're looking out for the best practices of home building and erosion control. And like I said, we're evaluating practices and new practices and coming up with new methods to control sediment from getting into our streams and water bodies. So essentially, that's what we're signing on for, is that we're committed to continuing the work of this group as a member and participate in it actively, to educate the public, contractors, municipality, public leaders on different factions or factors of erosion control and construction methods, and just to spread the word, essentially. And it's a great collaborative group that we get together with and look at it from different lenses, from an enforcement standpoint, from a contractor standpoint, from a homeowner standpoint, how it all impacts everybody. So that's what the Green Tier group is about, essentially. And Fitchburg's been a member, or hasn't been a charter member, but we are a signatory member, and they are proposing for us to become a member of the charter at this next renewal. So that's pretty much what I've got in summary.
So is this a 1 year? This will be 1 year, and then next year they'll ask us to be a charter?
It's a 5-year.
Oh, it's a 5-year.
It's a 5-year, I think.
Okay.
What city time, staff or otherwise, is involved in this?
They meet once a quarter for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We have presentations from different vendors and different contractors on issues that we see. I think it's about 2 hours a quarter that we invest.
Is there any other investment that goes along with this?
Other than just making sure that we're looking out for the best practices when we go out there in the field and implementing these and making sure everybody knows about it. So we do a little bit more outreach in those areas. So We reach out to contractors. We have an annual erosion control meeting or seminar that we put on for the city, and we invite all the contractors in for that. And so it's just, making sure everybody knows that it's really important to keep our community clean.
Okay. And I will just kind of note on the list of signatories, there are currently 2 other city municipalities. Is this only cities, or have other communities adjacent to Fitchburg, Oregon, Verona, Middleton, even you could go town of Verona. Are they involved in any of this, or have they chosen not to do that? I don't want to have you speculate as to why not, but is this just open to cities, or is this open to pretty much anyone?
No, this is open. What the charter group does is they take a look at it annually and see if there's other interest from other communities that want to participate, or other contractors. It's not just limited. And that's how Fitchburg really got involved, is that we really wanted to set ourselves up for success, and we wanted to be in on the ground floor of how everybody was. We've influenced some regulations out there with this group, so it's open to, I guess if you got an interest, and attend some meetings and come on over, and yeah.
The only concern I would have, and this isn't even a concern, the only thought process that's going to my head is when we have regional partners like a Verona, like in Oregon, where we have water issues that we share amongst ourselves, and they're not part of this. The question in my head is, what is the value to, Fitchburg? I know Madison obviously has their lakes and their waterways. Sun Prairie's I don't want to say they're a little bit far removed from Fitchburg, but they're kind of further on out there. Obviously, Dane County we're all a part of. But when we have kind of 2 other big entities that are getting further away from the areas that we also share waterways with, is there actual value in doing this if they're not at the table with us?
Yeah, there's absolutely value in being at the table, and if we can spread the word to them, it's more to it. It's you put a bunch of people in a room and you get some great ideas. So anytime we can bring people together in that fashion for the same goal of cleaning up our stormwater and the environment, it's a positive thing.
I'm just amazed reading through this. This was pretty much put together back in 2006.
Correct.
Water's still made up of.
Yeah.
Water's still H2O, right?
Yeah. Any other questions for Bill on this? And then we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R-15122 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution R-15322, approving a contract for the feasibility study and conceptual design to mitigate flooding north of Dunn's Marsh. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Gronetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. So this area, the Belmar area, is prone to, is this where I'm talking here?
Yep, Red Arrow and
Red
Crescent.
Arrow and Crescent. That large storms, the water comes kind of rushing down the hill. And my sense is it can't get across the road down into the drainage, into our ponds fast enough.
Correct.
So this study will come up with options to move that stormwater, off the street or through faster to not flood our street out down there. Am I in the ballpark?
Yep. Yeah, we've got a couple of apartment buildings and condos in that area where the water comes rushing down Crescent and down Red Arrow, and it just comes right to that area and ponds a couple of feet deep.
Yeah.
So it does float some cars. It has probably 4 or 5 times since I've been here in 5 years. So it's a frequent occurrence that happens there. I'm not sure there's too much we can do about it as far as, eliminating the problem, but we might be able to reduce the problem or the frequency of it by either capturing the water and getting it into pipes before it gets to that low area, or providing a better overland flow drainage path for the water to get out of there. So those are pretty much the 2 big, concept plans that we have going into this. And we're looking to, make sure that we're just not investing some money, and it's not going to make any difference anyway. So That's what this feasibility study is going to do, is be able to show us what the impact will be on different improvements that we can make to that area. Just a little bit about the contract itself. We had 4 bids that were submitted for this. We were planning on using ARPA funding, but due to the timing that I submitted this, it was prior, the proposals were out there before ARPA came available. And so we can't use the grant funding, the ARPA funding for this, and it was proposed to fund about 50% of the cost. We did find some funding that we are not going to be using in the dredging project, the stormwater dredging projects that we have throughout the community that we're not going to be able to get to this year for the projects. So we're going to transfer some money over to fund this, the grant portion of this project.
Questions for Bill? I just echo, I think Alder Wheeler feels the same way. It's a kick in the pants. They can't use the ARPA funding. So that's exactly what, darn it, Bill, for being so efficient and getting this stuff ready.
I know.
It strikes me odd. I don't know, just because something was in there.
Yeah, there's some language that need to be in the proposals, specifically regarding wage rates and outreach to DBEs or disadvantaged businesses and things like that. So I didn't have that in this contract when I put it out, so we can't use it for that.
Right. Is there, without getting in, the study hasn't been done, do we have enough capacity on the other side of the road in those ponds? I think we do. It take a lot more water, at least it would just flow towards the marsh. It wouldn't be backing up into, the apartments, I don't believe.
Correct. It's getting the water off the road we need to concentrate on.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 15322 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution R 8322, final assessment resolution for the Northeast Water Main Extension improvements. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Granetsky. Do we have a second? Second by Wheeler. All right. We beat this one up pretty good. I think the explanation. Bill talked about why the change in the assessment. We talked about the repayment terms. Any other questions? Right. Seeing none. All in favor of Resolution R 8322 signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next, Resolution R 14422, a resolution to contract with AE2S to complete Seminole Glen stormwater study. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Wilborn. Beat Michael in there just barely. This one, I think you're all aware of a small, pretty vocal group of residents that really are concerned about that. I've walked down and I've walked it with them. I've had the issue shown to me quite a few times. It's kind of a unique area, and it is modified, or it is changed quite a bit by the sedimentation that's gone in there over the years since we built it. What's the value of the contract with AE2S, Bill, for this?
It's $47,200. This company was chosen over two other ones, primarily because of their outreach campaign that they're planning for this. There's going to be a lot of neighborhood involvement and participation, so this firm does a pretty good job with listening to concerns, relating on normal language back to them, what's possible, not possible, and that was a strength that we really were trying to concentrate on, because this is such a neighborhood issue.
Okay. I would tell the board, this is the, relatively modest cost for the study. the solution is going to be much, it's going to be substantially more, I suspect, based on this, but I think, again, the neighbors around there have been pushing hard for this, and I feel reasonably so, that this is kind of a natural or kind of a regional facility there to clean the water, and it's not, it's not able to function as it was originally designed. Any other questions for Bill on this? See none, all in favor of Resolution R 14422 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Our next Board of Public Works meeting will be Monday, August 15th. I'll be in the Boundary Waters, so I won't be able to attend. Alder Wheeler has agreed to chair that meeting. If either of you cannot be there, you need to let Bill know right away.
I will not be able to attend.
Okay. So then, I don't know if we have a quorum. I don't think we should count on Kim to be able to attend. So do you want to move it out a week?
Let me check and see what I've got for.
Or do you want to go next week?
We've got hearings scheduled, so I have to look and see what those dates are.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
If there was any way the internet could work up there, I would call in, but.
All right.
I don't want to be taking it from a plane, so.
You know, send a smoke signal down.
Okay. All right. We'll wait to hear from Bill, possible different date. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Wheeler, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.